What happens when privacy, security, and blockchain technologies intersect? They actually give birth to a new people-first era of the internet. Up next is Luke Mulks, who's a director of business development at Brave Software. He's going to sort of shine a light on some of the fundamental principles and approaches that are driving this change and kind of how strategists can actually navigate this.
First, let's figure out what drove us to this change and this convergence point between these three things. Let's start with privacy. So there have been some shifts in privacy. It's kind of the buzzword now. If we look in history, 2010, Mark Zuckerberg was basically saying privacy was dead, and now he's drinking water in front of Congress, very uncomfortable, and that's changing. If you look a bit at Google too, in 2016 they removed the barrier between ad data collection and data collection for other services like Gmail, etc. And now in 2019 they're telling you that privacy is paramount to everything that they do, which get on that. And now we're in this era where everybody's talking about privacy, whether it's in their interest or not. Everyone has to have a stake in this. And one thing about Brave is that we've been consistent. I mean, like if you look at the iteration, from 2016 to 2019, we've been ahead in front about privacy and how we can adapt this and create models that respect privacy. Security is the other point. Everyone knows about data breaches and how kind of scary the web can be, especially if it's happened to you. Everybody from Jack Dorsey with the SIM swapping to if your accounts get hacked, etc. And now we've got blockchain, which this is a slide where everybody kind of knows the loose definition, an immutable distributed ledger and verifiable source of truth. I'm not going to get too deep into that because everybody's going to get fixed on the supply side. What I'm going to give you all a preview of is like what that means for users and what models are like in the blockchain space and why that's important. The blockchain space has been growing like crazy. Our friends at Never Stop Marketing have been doing this landscape every quarter, and it's over 415 companies at this point. Some of it's vaporware, some of it's real. I'm going to focus on the real stuff today. The other piece is regulation. GDPR is one of them, but regulators are waking up in general. There's an RTV investigation in Europe right now. I think it's the Irish ICO and in the UK as well, and they're basically validating some of these findings around RTV that it's kind of fundamentally incompatible with GDPR. And so whether that shakes out in any direction, it remains to be seen, but the fact that it's in the zeitgeist now is important. And in California, you're also seeing things like purpose limitation being brought into the equation, which for companies like Google and others, where they're mixing this data together, it becomes a major problem for them. But it becomes something that everyone has to start thinking about. And it's global movement. I mean, we're in the point now where this is a macro movement towards privacy. So you're either kind of getting on board and trying to figure out how this can work, or you're waiting and catching up, and by then it could be too late for your business. Businesses are already kind of starting to feel that pain. So what's a strategy for this? And kind of learn, explore, experiment, and hedge it, because maybe programmatic will be fine here. But if it isn't, let's figure out where we can put those dollars outside of that. And so what we're doing at Brave is kind of introducing a new internet, and it basically, it has three pillars: privacy by default, security, and blockchain. And I'll go into that a little bit, starting with privacy. Privacy by default means, everyone knows privacy whether they like it or not. You have window shades on your house. You don't want people to look in. The way the internet is right now, you don't. Anyone can grab your stuff, and you're basically sacrificing your privacy as the cost of a free web, which is. People have different feelings about that, but we don't think that that's okay. Security is another big one. Everything should be encrypted, and in this new internet, everything is encrypted by default. So that means put locks on your doors. That means you have the keys. You can give people access that they want if you decide to have that happen. And then the blockchain element, and there's a lot of focus on supply, tracking supply, and a lot of those great things. But for users, it means include them and reward them, right? In the old world, it's opt out, extract or collect. In the new world, it's opt in, participate, and reward. And the services that are in this space are focusing on those, the ones that are user centered. So it's stuff to keep in mind. And so Brave, we were basically packaging out, this is a gateway to the new internet. New internet begins with Brave. And Brave is a privacy-focused browser. We block anything that would attempt to collect your data without your consent. And as a result, we end up being 3 to 8 times faster than the competition because we're blocking those scripts and that data collection from happening. And on top of this, we basically build in this rewards platform that allows people to opt in, receive rewards for viewing ads, and then pay the content creators with tokens from our platform. And so I'll show you all how that works. So on our ad platform, as the user browses the web, they're presented with an offer in the form of a push notification. And if they choose to engage with that notification, a new tab opens in the browser. And what happens there is, we create an experience for brands where they can actually reward the user as they engage with the ad. So users are receiving rewards for their attention, and the whole idea here is that you try to get people to understand that their attention has value without hitting them over the head with it. And these are fundamentals, right? So like brands can program the ads to have different touch points in them where you can continue to earn from those ads that you view. And we also give people control over the ad experience, because that's another piece of this new web, is everybody wants to have control, whether it's their data or their selections. And we start off by giving people the opportunity to select how many ads that they see. And with our platform, we're giving people 70% of the ad revenue in the form of our tokens. So some people might want to turn that up to 5 ads an hour. Some people might want to have that as low as 1 or 2 if they want something less obtrusive. It doesn't really matter either way. Like, our philosophy is basically like, if we're succeeding, we're showing the right ad at the right time. And as users accumulate tokens while they browse the web, we actually include this feature in the URL bar. There's this triangle icon where people can click on that, and then they can select a creator, and they can tip that creator directly from the browser. So we offer some tipping options, and that's a way to directly reward the content creator with the tokens that people have viewed from advertising. We also have an auto contribution feature where if you opt in, it basically locally measures how much attention you spend at all the different content creators or publisher sites, and then at the end of the month distributes your tokens to those sites equally. And people can turn this on and off, and you can actually take their tokens out of the system if they choose to go through a process. And it's kind of catching on. We have 250,000 publishers and content creators that have verified to receive tokens on our platform, including Wikipedia, Vice, LA Times, New York Post, and we also have an ad grant program that we started. So anytime we have unfilled inventory, we actually, instead of showing a house ad or a promo ad, we basically show an ad from a nonprofit, and we're working with the Lupus Foundation and the Human Rights Foundation and a bunch of others to kind of help to spread awareness for them through the platform and give people donations. We also have 8 million monthly actives, and so that's been a healthy trend. And then we introduced the first, global private ad platform, and I can walk you through a little bit of that. So basically, the way that advertising works now, you all are very familiar with this. You're sending calls out to servers, everybody's kind of bidding on different profiles of you. What we're doing is basically taking a smart ad server and putting it directly on the device. And so we have an ad confirmation protocol that basically tracks different events instead of tracking people that happen in the funnel. We use zero-knowledge proofs and cryptography to basically verify that these events are taking place. And then instead of making calls to an ad server, we push a catalog that includes all of the ad inventory per region to all the devices, and it's edge cached compressed. And so we have local machine learning on the device that picks ads from that catalog against the entire browsing profile. So you have one main profile on the device, your information never leaves the device. Brave does not know who you are, but we can measure events as they happen down the funnel and give advertisers and brands an idea of what's happening with their ads, and then users can also opt and elect to give additional data out. We end up giving advertisers a data funnel that they're familiar with. It's all GDPR compliant. It's basically globally privacy compliant by design, and it's taking off a little bit. The other difference between what we're doing, and this is another piece of the new internet, is our ad platform is 100% opt-in. So like when you have an opt-in experience, it gives users choice and it gives brands certainty. When they spend into an opt-in platform, 100% of their spend goes in front of people that want to be a part of an advertising experience. And so that's much better than having throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. And we as an organization don't want to burn money putting ads in front of people that don't want to see them. They'll leave our product. And so when you have this opt-in in audience, you see much higher engagement rates. Like currently we're tracking 14% click-through rates on our platform, and 23% of those click-through rates result in a 10-second landing page visit. So much high engagement. There will be some steady state where we still have one more platform to go, but so far so good. And Brave's it's just the beginning of this piece. There are other blockchain-based organizations that are putting real product out there. Anything from leasing your storage, personal storage onto the blockchain, or storing files on the blockchain through IPFS or storage, or giving people your purchase data in exchange for rewards, which is what the Tap Network's doing, or giving brands preferences and other data for rewards. The whole idea here is that you're giving people something and you're getting something in return. It's a much fairer exchange and it's much more transparent, and the blockchain helps to kind of verify with all this information. So I think the one thing to take away from here is basically the new internet's coming, so you can either embrace the change or you can sit and wait and see or whatever. But whatever you end up doing, you can go to brave.com, experience this new internet right now, and test it out. And there are a couple people here, I think, from my team, if anybody's interested in talking about follow-up stuff. But I'm not going to open up for questions. But thank you very much for your time.
We've got some questions coming up. My first one was just going to be privacy or privacy, but that's just a question. But first of all, what's to prevent media providers from blocking display on your browser if they can't serve their ads?
Some people try to do this with anti-ad blocking, right? Like for example, and in those cases we'll actively circumvent it. I mean, most of the time though, right now if you're looking at a Brave user, they look like a Chrome user. So we're kind of sticking behind that user agent until we hit a certain scale where we'll start to expose that user agent. We would hope that they wouldn't, but I think that our users would complain. And one thing we're doing, and part of this, 250,000 creators and publishers are all receiving tokens for viewing ads, or from people that are viewing ads. We're coming out with a publisher ad product too. So I think we are very pro-publisher, and I think our contribution model was the first thing we put into production because we wanted to create a viable alternative. I was from the advertising world, right? And I was not going to leave that nice place until I saw something that was a viable alternative, and that's what Brave was doing early on. We stuck to iterate on that.
So what's next in the data exchange with consumers? If you're writing a sci-fi novel, what would the future actually look like?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. You could look at something like, at the functional level, you could have something where, you use a fingerprint that basically, is a hash that basically ties anything you do to the blockchain to verify that you owned it or created this artwork that people then could then enjoy. So things like that would be excellent. I mean, there's a whole plethora of things that are available, and people are trying some really funky things right now. But that's the stuff I think. Any way where we can take something where creators or artists are basically, feeling they're still starving even though they're famous, right? Anywhere where we can fix that and bring that in and bring that direct relationship between people and brands. That's really what we're trying to do here. Is it doesn't have to be as complicated as it is, as much as fun as it is to gamify the auction models and things like that. If we bring it to basics, you end up with a better result, and you end up with people, when they're included, they're much more loyal. That's kind of where we're looking for.
So, okay. So, that one. On your opt-in platform, so how do you target users in terms of age, gender, and demographics? For instance, so this is someone that has a pharma brand. Our pharma brand isn't relevant to most of the population.
Yeah. So basically, initially, we take a list that's contextual at first. So we take the IAB categories, content categories, and we offer buyers the opportunity to buy against those categories. And this is basically because when we're introducing this new reporting protocol, we kind of have to start from scratch. And we're just starting with contextual, moving into purchase intent, and then adding in demographics on top of that afterwards. And it's all using this new protocol.
So someone has the interest of websites in mind here. So can the websites expect to make as much from your tokens as they would from serving traditional ads?
I mean, I think, right now our value prop has basically been look, you're losing money from people that are ad blocking anyway. And I think as we scale, it's something where it definitely becomes competitive, and that's on us to prove out on the publisher side. And so our tact has been show the users that they have value, give them a lot, and keep the mechanisms there. We have some big publishers. We've partnered with Barron's and MarketWatch and some traditional companies that want to do something different, right? Because privacy is so much in the forefront now, and the blockchain is there too. We want to make sure that these aren't just buzzwords, like that these are real, and so that's kind of where we're coming from. It's something, some publishers are just never going to do it until it's too late, like, and others are like, let me in, I want to do this right now. So it kind of depends on the publisher, but you know, what we're seeing is good so far, and especially with the content creators, and it was a good time for us to kind of let them on board where they were worried about losing money from YouTube, et cetera. So, you know, right now it's been ancillary, but we hope to eventually, you know, overtake what people are making on programmatic.
I've got a question of my own. I grew up in a time when we had to kind of respect kind of people's time.
Yeah.
So my first grade was like, we're barging into people's homes, we can't be rude, and so like, we're going to kind of entertain them. And so even now you get to a point where creativity needs to get to a point where people would willingly pay for it. And so it's interesting is if I'm putting out something on your platform that actually is of such a high bar, could I expect to pay less to show it to people?
Yeah, so the option that we give publishers the option to basically like set different amounts for how much that people want to tip. I mean, like it's kind of like if you think about the auto contribution feature we have, it's almost like mailbox money, right? It's like an annuity. You're kind of you're viewing content, it's getting measured locally, and then that's getting distributed. But the tipping amounts people can modify. So like we have some people where I think it defaults at 1, 5, and 10 BAT for these, which is our native token in the browser. And so you can take that. We have some people that do 20, 50, 100. So like it's really up to the creator. We're trying to just create a platform and create tools for them to run with, because 90% of our company is engineers and product people, and so we think the creative people are good at being creative, right? Like just build them the right pipes and the stage for what they need to do.
Oh, this was a lot of votes. Is there any data on the effectiveness of opt-in ads driving results? And so is there a concern that people could be viewing ads to mine coins but aren't really interested?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, we spend a lot of time kind of thinking about what do you reward, right? Like, and there's a natural drive to kind of say like, well, let's reward clicks. Everyone's used to paying per click, right? Like, but for us, it's important initially, at least, to give them the reward for viewing the ad first, to show them that there's value in opting in, and then from there, some of the deeper stuff, like in that slide with the camera, you know, you can stick around in the ad for longer. I mean, the reality is that the ads aren't performing, the brands aren't going to come back, and we don't want to have brands spending on our platform if they're not effective. And there's going to be a period of time here where we go from like 8 million to 18 or 20 million, where it might not be the right audience fit for everybody. But you know, you never know until you try, and we're kind of developing the models and iterating on that. So.
Thank you very much, Luke.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all.
Oh yeah, so this one came up. I'm going to start with this because it's actually a hard question. I don't even know what the question is. But there are a bunch of food carts in front of this building. If you said to someone standing in line, food is politics, what do you think they would say? They decided to remain anonymous.
What's in the food cart? I think that's what matters.
I think you've got a plastic packed chicken and an organic orange juice.
So I think the talk was really interesting because I think it's about the notion of, I think there's a lot of reckoning happening in the corporate world around. So I think the quote came on the back of a story when, I'll try to paraphrase it, when Valerie was appointed, she told her son she was getting the role, and the response was, well, I'm sure you cannot be proud of that because of the type of impact that Danone has on the environment. So I think there's a moment of reckoning of what kind of world are we creating through the products, through the marketing, through the type of growth that we're chasing. So I think if I look at a question like that, I think what's really fascinating to me, I think time is now and it's absolutely in our hands to force those conversations. Because if we don't do it now, then who else is going to do it? And then how much time do we have left? I don't know.
Good answer.
Non-answer.
Can you walk through examples of how you've used different frameworks on client projects?
Shall I take this one?
Go
What's the last one? So there were quite a few in there. The big sort of tech CX stack that we shared is normally the framework that we use to start a conversation, to identify where we're jumping in. And we'll get questions like, I think I need a new website, or this product isn't selling, or we've got a new product because our competition have one and we need to go to market. And they're quite standard questions that we see coming through every day. Sometimes we will have, we know we're out of date and we need to do something a little bit different, can you help us connect the dots? So that framework is essentially something we sit down with our clients and we kind of go, where are we jumping in and how far do you want to go? It's also a really good model for working out where other partners are in play. Because quite often we're one of several agencies or consultancies working on things, so it starts to enable us to understand perhaps who the data partner is and do they need any help? What MarTech do you have in place? Do you have physical stores? Where are your physical stores? Do you have flagships there? So it just helps us kind of like have a construct to bring together and shape a brief together. So that's what that kind of big stack is about. It also helps us learn how to evolve. So if our jumping point is, okay, so you do need a new website, why? Then we probably normally go across to associated digital touch points and then down into MarTech. And so we sort of grow through the stack. It's not a case of, we need to do all of this, because that's just not possible. The ones at the end were examples of sort of bite size, literally, okay, now we're getting going, where do we start? Generally, we normally start with what do we need to know, what don't we know, and how do we find out the answers to that. So it normally comes down to data and insight. And we have several methodologies, but we find that those two that we shared are ones that we use on pretty much every single client without fail. So we always start with setting a direction and understanding what that direction is. And then we start to break it down into sizable chunks. And around those exercises, so the infinity loop is normally really high level. Then you start to go deeper into consumer journey mapping, empathy mapping. These are probably terms, especially if you're sort of experienced design thinkers, you'll have heard of all of this. Before you get to your vision mapping and then your road mapping, and some bloody mapping. And then I think stuff like the cultural value model is normally, we'll have people our clients will come to us and say, so we've got a business problem, this is the other side of what we do, so it might not come from a CMO, it might come from a CEO or perhaps a CTO, a Chief Transformation Officer. And they will kind of say, so this is the business problem and we need to understand how to better market. And that's when we will help them bridge the gap from their business value proposition and where they need to make money to running that through the lens of their consumers and what consumers want to buy. And so it just helps with that kind of, I said at the very beginning, the biggest shift comes down to that one question, which is, what are we going to empower our consumers to do today that they couldn't do before? Normally those kind of tools come in when you're trying to answer that question. Hopefully that's given enough of a, can't remember all the others are in there. Cool.
So thank you, Karen, and George.